This entire year, we have been putting a spotlight on all of the moves that are being made around crypto within and even outside of the US. Let's just be honest here. Things are accelerating faster than we ever thought possible, and I really do want you guys to realize how amazing this is for the entire crypto space. I'm not the only one that is really noticing this. Nate Gerolchi recently put out a post saying the SEC Crypto Task Force met today with several companies to discuss convergence of crypto and AI. Read this. We'll keep saying don't think people fully appreciate how fast things are moving. And yes, I really don't think people realize how fast things are moving in this space because, again, we're only really focused on the price chart and alt season and the biggest bull run in history, this, that, whatever. But also think about the long-term future of crypto and think about what's been happening over just the last roughly like 10, 11 months or so. Now, on top of that, here we have a little bit of an interesting image. This is the objective from the meeting with Collab Plus Currency, which is a venture capital firm. Now, they are investing into AI, crypto infrastructure, and even frontier applications. Now, they believe that this is going to be, a foundational infrastructure, if you will, to America's long-term competitiveness, innovation, and security. Now, most of the things that they are looking at here is the AI and crypto convergence. And I've been talking about it, right? We don't get AI at scale without crypto and blockchain. AI is just not going to be adopted into enterprise and institutional stacks without having that crypto technology stack tied to it. Because again, what crypto unlocks is smart contracts that can limit the reach of AI and ultimately have some sort of guardrail around AI. Because again, we just don't want rogue AI systems that are all of a sudden starting to, learn more than what they're supposed to and do more than what they're supposed to as well. So again, yeah, AI and crypto is converging in a very fast way. Now, also, some pretty big names are looking into automating specific things. Now, when we think about that, yes, AI is needed. Yes, crypto is needed because what they want to automate is trades. We're talking about the stock market moving on chain, which takes us over here to a few things that have been happening over the last couple weeks. Number one, Coinbase. Coinbase to launch tokenized stocks and prediction markets for US users, expanding into all-in-one on-chain exchange. This was a big update because, again, it showed us that everyone inside and outside of crypto is essentially ready for tokenized stocks. They want the stock market tokenized on chain. This is a big deal. Now, for the most part, a lot of the updates around tokenized stocks have been coming from crypto-based companies. For an example, Ondo. On September 3rd, Ondo launched Wall Street 2.0, which was their global markets. This was with 100 plus tokenized stocks. If we go over here to the tokenized stocks market, 461 million. This is up about almost 15% in the last 30 days. And if we look at the name here, Ondo, 103 RWAs tied to it, $82.3 million worth. Also, by the way, yes, XRP is tied back to Archix. If we come down here, we have Archix at the number 2 spot with $55.3 million, all tied back to, of course, the XRP ledger. So XRP is on here for sure, but again, we're just at the beginning stages of tokenized stocks. $461 million is absolutely nothing compared to how big the global stock market is. And if we're thinking about that, we also go back to March of this year. Do you guys remember this post? This is from Nasdaq, and this is 24/5 trading announcement. Greetings. We are writing to inform you of our strategic intent to transition the Nasdaq stock market to operate 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. This decision is driven by the evolving needs of global investors and the market, which you can read more about in Tal Cohen's recent op-ed posted on LinkedIn. Yeah, the Nasdaq wants to tap in to 24/5 trading. Now, we got this back in March. I'm bringing this back up because we just got a big update on the 8th, which was Nasdaq has filed with the SEC to tokenize stocks, letting investors trade equities either traditionally or on chain with full shareholder rights. Here we have the video. This is Nasdaq files with the US SEC to tokenize stocks. This is massive. Check it out, guys. 1 second. Sorry about that. My settings changed in my OBS. Here you guys go.
You want to tell people what?
You think we should?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so this morning we announced that we're going to be bringing tokenization into our markets. So making sure that equities are tokenized and traded on market, in the markets, not in a side sleeve, but actually in the core markets.
So the eventual goal, or is it today? 24/7, 365 equities, just let it rip constantly.
I mean, I think we are all moving in that direction. We announced several months ago that we're moving to 24/5, so we're
24/5
moving that way.
So Saturday and Sunday, not.
Not for equities yet. I think that we have to. We're walking before we run, but I think that getting to 24/5 is a major advancement for the U.S. equities markets. And then on top of that, now with tokenization, if we can introduce that also into the markets, it allows us to really think about streamlining the post-trade processing, bringing and modernizing elements of the markets that have a lot of friction. We are hyper resilient and we're hyper scaled. We manage, like today, we had 95 billion messages come into our systems today, and we had a median, return time of 20 microseconds from order to trade. We handle like 3 million messages a second. It's hugely scaled. But then at the same time, once that trade occurs, there's a different process. And then the post-trade process, as we know, is an area where tokenization really shines. And really cutting down the friction, managing capital flows across the global ecosystem, and really bringing that capability into the markets is going to be the next.
I'm curious to get your reaction to this. There's this very famous curve, which is like you get this early font of insanity, and then there's the trough of disillusionment, and then you grow through. And does it seem like crypto is actually in blockchain? It's finally real. It's like there's real companies doing real things, stablecoins, what Sachs did with the Genius Act.
Well, I actually want to point to that because, honestly, having regulators who want to work on bringing it into the mainstream and want to create the rules of the road is such a refreshing thing, because I think that it allows us all to understand how we can operate within a world where there are tenets of investor protection. The technology is going to have things we can and can't do, but also being forward-thinking and forward-leaning and how the technology is going to be applied is going to be critical. So we're very excited about the fact that we finally have this convergence of regulation between the traditional markets, the digital markets. How do we bring it all together to, frankly, advance all markets? And we're very, very excited about that.
And the fact that these are the conversations that are being had right now. I mean, guys, think about how crazy this is. This is the Nasdaq talking about how crypto and tokenization, and once we have all of this regulated, how these can improve every single market. This is something that we have been addressing and talking about for what seems like forever, but guys, it's happening now. This is a wild time to be in crypto. And if we're thinking about the Nasdaq, right? We go over here to this video clip. This is from Smoke Dog because, again, it almost always seems like Ripple has some sort of connection, right? Here we have Ripple's running trials with Nasdaq. Listen closely. Now, it doesn't matter how old this clip is because it is a little bit more of an older clip. However, if we're looking at this, we do know that Ripple did hold some trials with some of the biggest names out there. Even the Bank of England had a POC with the XRP ledger to solve atomic settlement. This is just another one of those big connections.
And, this guy sells it to that guy. That's essentially, what the stock exchange does. So if you can have a common ledger to be able to exchange those IOUs at, then that certainly makes sense. And there's examples of Korean banks partnering with local, Bitcoin companies for the settlement. People like the IMF or World Bank or these kind of people are always talking about these sort of blockchain settlement systems. Nasdaq is involved in I think doing some trials with Ripple as well. So this guy sells it.
Now you might say, all right, well, where is the proof of this? If you look through documents from specific organizations like the IMF, the World Bank, etc., you will see all of those connections back to Ripple. We've gone over them over the years. There's been a lot of trials with Ripple that a lot of people just kind of write off now because, again, if we think about how long ago those trials were, the one with Bank of England was, I think, 2017. It might have been even earlier than 2017. A lot of people think, all right, well, that was back in, 2016, 2017. Today it's 2025, so it doesn't matter at all, right? Well, even recently we talked about the connections back to Thunes, right? Some of those connections go back 3, 4, 5 years ago, but they just announced a partnership with Thunes to expand locally in Africa, as well as a few other areas around the world. And that's where those connections become so valuable to know and understand, because at some point in time, there's going to be a much larger announcement that, hey, guess what? Ripple is working with X, Y, and Z because of connections that we found back in 2017, 2018, 2019, etc. But beyond that, we also have over here, and this goes back to 2024. Again, this is the CEO of Nasdaq saying, if there was a shift to 24/7 or 24/5 trading, we'd have a lot to change. We'd have to introduce as well. And again, when we think about this, what they're trying to introduce and what they're changing is their back end technology. They are looking at blockchain stacks to tap into so that they can achieve this. They are not achieving 24/5 with traditional systems. It's just not possible. So we now know that they are starting to work on a new system. And what's even crazier about this, real quick before I play this video clip, is look who's attending Ripple Swell this year. That's right. Nasdaq's chair and CEO, Adina Friedman. She'll explore the future of the financial system, the potential of digital assets and blockchain, the evolving role of tokenization, and emerging technologies. You seriously can't make this up. But check this out.
How long have you been CEO now, Adina?
7.5, well, about a little over 7 years.
A lot of the things you just talked about were not part of the company 7.5 years ago, were they?
That's true. So we've been really growing in terms
Where
of...
you needed to, because nothing's happening when it gets quiet in terms of trading, and when the IPO market is, as you call it, muted. Are you happy that you did these other things at this point?
We're very happy, because not only is it great to have a diversified platform where you can grow kind of in different market conditions, but we also have much more impact with our clients. We're now going to banks and saying, we can help you solve some of your biggest challenges. They want to be able to provide capital to the markets and get deposits into their banks. But they have to manage crime out of their systems. They have to manage risk in the markets. They have to manage a lot of regulatory burden. And we're now their partner to do that. And that means we have better impact and a really interesting growth profile. Because that business, our fintech division, grew 10% this quarter.
Adina, there's been some talk about extending the trading day, even 24-hour trading days. Where do you come down on that? What do you think?
So it's interesting to see how demand is starting to come in from all over the world for Nasdaq, particularly actually for Nasdaq-listed companies. So what we've been doing inside our business is we've been expanding the distribution of our data to the entire world. So that's been a growth driver for us to get data, real-time market data in the hands of broker-dealers and brokers, retail brokers all over the world, as well as driving indexes and index products to exchange. We list our index products all over the world. So that kind of helps satisfy some of the investor interest. But we also operate, our systems are open 16 hours a day. The markets are technically open 9:30 to 4, but we open our system for trading at 4 in the morning and we stop at 8. Going to 24/7 is a different proposition,
That's
though.
crazy. I mean, would there be no more opening bell, no more closing bell? How do you do percentage changes? I
think there's
we
a
have
lot.
Some of these problems with Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of operational challenge that comes from 24/7, even 24/5 trading. Just technically, we provide technology to other markets who trade that way, so we know how to do it. We know what it takes. But operationally, you have to be ready to respond in any given moment. And with companies, it's different than it is with commodities, because companies have earnings.
Right.
We have news we need to distribute.
You have stuff that you want to put out when there's not an active market.
And there's also an entire infrastructure in the mutual fund industry that really ties to that 4 o'clock closing price. So if there were a shift more towards global trade, 24/7 or 24/5 trading, we'd have a lot of change we'd have to introduce, as well as recognizing that a lot of institutional investors, they like to go home and have dinner. Yeah. So how do you make it so that it's not just retail? Because retail, I think it's good to give access to retail investors, but it's much better if you have a very vibrant liquidity environment. So there's a lot we'd have to consider.
A big issue, some sort of market shakedown, and nobody's around to say, okay, how do we put this
and I think that's important too. And what if you're a company CEO and at 3 o'clock in the morning something happens in your stock? So you have to think about all of those things. We've had conversations with our clients about it, but we're not kind of moving in that direction right now. I think we're still evaluating it.
At this
But the fact that they were preparing this back in 2024 tells us that the Nasdaq, this isn't something new, right? Like, this is not a new thing. They have been planning this for quite some time. So if we're thinking about this, we're looking at these markets and we're looking at what's been announced around these markets. Going just back to July, you know, Chainlink put out a great post regarding 5 reasons why stocks and equities are going on chain. And it's very simple, right? You have that global access, you have that 24/7 trading, you have that instant settlement, you have that DeFi composability, you have on-chain transparency, not to even mention increased liquidity, right? Liquidity is a big one. But this is a $125 trillion market. This is a global market that's worth $125 trillion. And if we're thinking about this, tokenized stocks right now are 461 million. And the biggest names around the stock market, Robinhood, one of the largest, you know, stock trading applications out there. They have, I think it's like 25 million users. They are all in on tokenization. Vlad Tenev has been posting about tokenization, you know, pretty much all summer long. I mean, guys, this is no longer a game of speculation. It's happening. This is crazy to see. And it's also showing us the world in which we are currently living in, which is the beginning stages of a digital on-chain world where every single market, every single transaction will soon be on digital rails. And those digital rails will be DLTs, blockchain based. Everything will be tokenized. This is the beginning. It's happening now. And again, we've been talking about this for years now, and it's finally here. Things are accelerating faster than ever before. The SEC is now working with some of the smallest companies out there, talking about what we can do to make sure that this becomes a reality. Crypto, AI, tokenization, it's all converging all at once. Even institutional DeFi is a big piece of this. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on if you guys want more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, this has been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out, guys.